Thank you. With your leave, Madam Speaker, I rise to speak on the section that deals with statement by ministers. And I rise to speak as minister responsible for citizenship by investment, national security, and immigration. Madam Speaker, I wish to make a statement to the nation in my capacity as Prime Minister and Minister with responsibility of national security, immigration, and citizenship. Over the past few weeks, I have stated publicly that I will address the people of St. Kitts and Nevis, our beloved citizens, on the results of our administration's internal review of our citizenship by investment program. For those who may not be aware, our Constitution and Citizenship Act allow persons who invest substantially in our country to apply for the privilege to become a citizen. By law, since 1984, those applicants who successfully satisfy our due diligence requirements and invest substantially can be issued a certificate of registration as a citizen and thereafter a St. Kitts and Nevis passport. Our Citizenship by Investment Program, also known as CBI, is now 40 years old. Let me state clearly, Madam Speaker, that after an investment of a substantial amount and a satisfied, vigorous due diligence process, then that person can apply for citizenship and through another process be deemed qualified to receive such, and then can apply for a St. Kitts Nevis passport. I wanted to make that clear. And that law has been in place since 1984, most likely less than a year after our independence of 1983. Since taking office on August 6, 2022, one of our first priorities and my priorities as Minister responsible for immigration and citizenship, national security, as exposed before, was to dig deep into the operations of our CBI unit, which I had been informed prior to taking office needed some significant attention. Despite those warnings, I came to recognize what I initially found. And what I found prompted me to immediately and urgently, within my first few days in office, to commission a comprehensive review of the CBI regulations and ask for the important CBI data so that I could report comprehensively to our citizens who deserve to have this information, our citizens home and abroad, what I had found and why we had acted so swiftly to save the CBI program. Now is the time that that report of what was happening and what we did to save the CBI program and what we intended to do to make our CBI program sustainable. I will tell you how many issuances of passports that we had, how many economic citizens we have, how much cash revenue, which is normally reported in the annual budget or appropriation bill, and how much revenue per passport would have been generated, why and what we did to save the CBI program, and what we plan to do to make the program sustainable while we diversify the economy in our transformation towards a sustainable island state, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, for 40 years, our CBI program has been the pioneer of the global investor migration industry. The program has allowed this nation to thrive beyond what could have been possible without it. Initially, during its first 24 years, the CBI program was utilized mainly by persons who bought a second home in St. Kitts or Nevis. However, with keen interest and applying it for significant investments otherwise, the program was expanded. At that time, when it was expanded, St. Kitts and Nevis was already a global innovator in CBI. Given this increased international interest for investments in St. Kitts and Nevis, it was decided that, especially after 2008, with the economic downturn and the closing of the sugar industry, that this can be used in an appropriate way to continue the development of our beautiful St. Kitts and Nevis. Madam Speaker, that was the basis on which the CBI program was expanded. But since we took office over 19 months ago, or just about, this St. Kitts Labour Party administration has been working tirelessly to build this nation to become competitive globally. And as such, we are resolute on strengthening and improving our CBI program for enhanced sustainability within the framework of integrity. Madam Speaker, might I remind our citizens and this honorable House that it was this administration and this team that gave teeth to integrity in public life legislation. Madam Speaker, before that, nothing was done. It was just pure lip service, Madam Speaker. All of this has to be premised on a framework of integrity. Otherwise, it would not work. So between 2008 and 2015, the then St. Kitts Labour Party administration, led by the Honorable Dr. Denzel Douglas, used CBI revenues to develop infrastructure, to build affordable homes for people, to advance our education by hiring more teachers and improving school campuses, to construct new hotels like Park Hyatt and Kitishan Hill, and to launch economically beneficial programs such as the People Empowerment Program and the REACH program. Of course, the REACH recognizing everyone's ability to climb higher, which was a program at the CFBC. CBI revenue was well utilized then to support empowerment programs and infrastructural development which yielded permanent jobs and careers. Since then, we know the major project that the CBI program was used to build, which is a prison, Madam Speaker. This leads me to discuss one of the first things that we recognized on taking office in 2022. The federal government was overly reliant, Madam Speaker, and I've spoken to this on multiple occasions, that a significant fiscal policy, let me say a significant detrimental fiscal policy was introduced where we became overly dependent, Madam Speaker, on the CBI program. Between 2008 and 2022, CBI generated 43% of the overall cash revenue of the federal government, Madam Speaker. 2008 and 2022, 43%, Madam Speaker, which means that this program had become the fundamental pillar underpinning our financial architecture. Madam Speaker, between that time, we were able to raise 5.678 billion EC dollars in revenue at an average roughly of 378 million EC dollars per year. This is known. In the last 5 years of the previous administration, CBI generated 50% of the overall cash revenue for the federal government. In the last 2 years of the previous administration, CBI generated 57% of the overall cash revenue for the federal government. This is the truest economic example of putting all of one's eggs in one basket, Madam Speaker. The IMF, in their report examining the 2022 performance of our economy, said, and I quote, "The growing dependence on volatile and uncertain CBI revenue is a major source of vulnerability," Madam Speaker. I want to say that again. The IMF, in their report examining the 2022 performance of our economy, said, and let me quote them again, Madam Speaker, "The growing dependence on volatile and uncertain CBI revenue is a major source of vulnerability. Directors called for reducing dependence on CBI revenue, to reduce the heavy dependence and unpredictable CBI revenue through improved structural fiscal policies, enhanced accountability, and use for investment in resilience and building buffers." End of quote, Madam Speaker. Critically important. That, I think, underpins our concerns. This is why one of our immediate priorities was and is to diversify our economy. I spoke about that during the 2022 appropriation bill debate, or the budget debate, and also during the 2023 appropriation bill debate. The IMF recognized this in the very same report when they said, and I quote, "The lifting of all COVID-related travel restrictions in August 2022, and I will say it was August 7th, 2022, a Sunday night at our Marriott Hotel, where that decision was made with all of the relevant persons in the room, including the CMO and others. I will say it again. The lifting of all COVID-related travel restrictions in August 2022 sparked a strong rebound in the tourism sector and across the economy, end of quote. IMF stating it. Remember, Madam Speaker, I said to the people that a travesty had been committed when the then administration refused to open the economy fully by removing the unnecessary restrictions. Had we not done that, the economy would have lagged even more. And because we took so long to open up the country and remove the restrictions, the economy lagged. Reports will show that the St. Kitts Nevis economy recovered almost the slowest in the OECS as a result of this. All of the other countries had removed their restrictions and they were open for business to the point where some countries had higher numbers in terms of their tourism numbers than even 2019, Madam Speaker. However, St. Kitts and Nevis lagged because the previous administration refused to open up the country, and we are still feeling some of the effect from that. Had the economy been opened up as others, or at the same time as others, we would have recovered since by the end of 2023. Madam Speaker, that was a significant error that was created previously. Madam Speaker, yes, that cash revenue from CBI has given us the opportunity to prosper without relying too much on international financial aid. But the Unity administration did nothing to diversify our economy and we became over-reliant and dependent on CBI inflows. In 2022, CBI revenue reached an unsustainable level of 60% of total federal government revenue. This unsustainable status quo cannot continue, and our administration has been focused on diversifying our economy, Madam Speaker. It is the only way. That is why economic diversification is one of the 7 pillars of our sustainable island state agenda, Madam Speaker. The economy that we envision will see major inflows from tourism, major inflows from construction, major inflows from water and energy infrastructure, major inflows from the creative economy, major inflows from agriculture, major inflows from offshore education, major inflows from manufacturing, and more. No longer, Madam Speaker, can we continue to be so reliant on a single leg, and that single leg is the CBI program. Madam Speaker, this leads me to discuss the second occurrence that we observed after taking office in 2022, Madam Speaker. And really, that we are going to deal with, and I've been asked multiple times about the numbers, Madam Speaker. What are the numbers? And we had to do an in-depth analysis and deep dive to get into the numbers, which we are still seeking to do, Madam Speaker. For example, the CBI program, we know that one of the major projects that was approved under the previous administration was a prison project, Madam Speaker. A prison was approved. And 5,500 citizenships, or shares rather, Madam Speaker, shares, as it was called then, shares, was used for that project. It means, therefore, that 5,500 main applicants, if they were to invest in the prison project, can apply for citizenship. And if they would have passed the due diligence and other screening procedures, can access our passport. But, Madam Speaker, that is just the main applicants. If you have a family of 4, that is a single share. With a family of 4, that's 4 times 5,500 passports, Madam Speaker. Do a calculation. I'm asking the people of this country. I've been asked for the numbers. And even members from the other side who know very well what the numbers are, they have asked that the numbers be given, but we took a deep dive, and now we are ready to say what happened with that project. So if you were to multiply 5,500 by 4, and the mathematicians are here, I am sure you'll get well over what? 20,000? Yes. 20,000. What is the population of St. Kitts and Nevis, Madam Speaker? About 55,000 on a good day. And just a one project, Madam Speaker, a prison project, the previous administration allowed access to a number of passports, which is about half of the population of St. Kitts and Nevis. Madam Speaker, approved. And we are still seeing, because once you are approved, you go through the system, Madam Speaker, and the government becomes bound to whatever legal agreements were made. Madam Speaker, up to about 25,000 just for one project, and that was the prison project. And to be fair to even those who invested, they did not ask to build a prison, they were presented a prison to build, almost as if we have a project here, just run with it. 5,500, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, that is a significant number. Madam Speaker, I know that the propaganda arms will be running with all sorts of propaganda. I've been Prime Minister with the blessings of the people in 2022 and 2023. More than 90% of the certificates of registration that any Prime Minister in that position would have been committed to were related to the prison project, Madam Speaker. Why couldn't we use such resource to develop our country more? Why so many, Madam Speaker? Half of our population. Imagine, even before that, the numbers were significantly lower, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, the other aspect that we have to look at, between 2016 and 2022, it was said, Madam Speaker, it was recognized rather, that there was a cheapening of our citizenship by investment program. But by their own admission and actions, they said to us the reason why they had to cheapen it was because of market forces, Madam Speaker. They jeopardized our relationships with our international partners by allowing investors to pay much less than they used to pay before. Our CBI program was not only catering to those of high net worth, but our CBI program was brought down, Madam Speaker. And that is why we heard terms before that a previous Labour administration was selling passports like black pudding on a Friday afternoon. But Madam Speaker, during that time, the average that an investor had to invest, and I will get to that number later on, Madam Speaker, was much more than they had to invest on especially that prison project. That was like selling it like sugar cake from a tray on 4th Street, Madam Speaker. And they asked for numbers. But the people have a right to ask, but they know. And when they were asked to report to the people, they said it's an industry secret, Madam Speaker. An industry secret or state secret, kept it away from the people, calling it a state secret, Madam Speaker. And I've been asked over and over to present, but I've said to the people that I would have to do a deep dive so that when I come to the people, I come authentic and with good information, which is happening today. Our international partners, Madam Speaker, became aware of this practice, of this underselling, when they saw more and more persons showing up to their shores with St. Kitts and Nevis passports. Madam Speaker, this, of course, required quick action. It is because of this type of program that was unnecessary to do. Actions by the previous administration and the minister responsibility that allow an exponential increase over the last 3 to 4 years in the number of persons being issued economic citizenships and passports. This led to the fact that the EU has poised themselves to take action against any rogue CBI program. On March 13th, 2024, this month, the EU member states ambassadors agreed their position on a draft regulation which allows the EU to suspend visa-free travel for third countries whose nationals are exempt from visa obligations when traveling in the Schengen area. Madam Speaker, it is because of those reckless actions of the previous administration that the Financial Task Force, FATF, and the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development issued a joint report in November 2023 titled Misuse of Citizenship and Residency by Investment Programs, in which they examine all sorts of financial things that can take place. But, Madam Speaker, we took measures to make sure that we protect our international partners. In that report, the author stated, and I quote, investors can want or tend to misuse it, but as again I said, we took strong action against that. Madam Speaker, when we look around, name one CBI project that was started and completed under the previous administration. Name one, Madam Speaker. Not a hotel. The Six Senses Hotel that was supposed to be built in St. Kitts and Nevis, Madam Speaker, I went to the opening over the weekend because I was invited there. That Six Senses Hotel was supposed to be built at La Valley in constituency number 6 here in St. Kitts and Nevis. The investors packed up and left and went down to Grenada, where Six Senses is now opened, and it's a beautiful property. And of course, I went because I'm happy to see that the investors stayed in the Caribbean so that our people can benefit indirectly, as this is part of the region and the region's financial infrastructure. But that should have been here, Madam Speaker. That is the type of investment that the CBI program should have been used to develop. Park Hyatt, Madam Speaker, and I'll get to them. But I'm simply saying that, Madam Speaker, was because of the type of practices that took place on the previous administration, who cannot show one complete program, or one complete project, rather, under the program. Madam Speaker, I say this without hesitation because it is a stone-cold truth. It is only because of swift and comprehensive actions of the St. Kitts and Nevis Labour Party administration that we still have a CBI program in 2024. Madam Speaker, this was one of the quickest action that we took, and I kept saying one of the greatest challenges that I have as the Prime Minister, that we have as an administration, was the CBI program. Back then it was not so obvious, but I could see where we were coming from and where we were heading. We had to take significant, quick action to protect the integrity of St. Kitts and Nevis, to protect our citizenship, to protect our passport, and to engender confidence in our international partners that St. Kitts and Nevis is a responsible country, a country that is now premised on good governance and not to be run again like a banana republic. Madam Speaker, it's because they lacked integrity and good governance laws why these type of things took place. Madam Speaker, As I've said, it is only because of swift and comprehensive actions of the St. Kitts Nevis Labour Party administration that we can still travel to the UK without a visa, Madam Speaker. That was heavily under threat. We saw what took place with another OECS country as they lost their visa waiver privilege with the UK. Madam Speaker, it is only because of swift and comprehensive actions of this St. Kitts Nevis Labour Party administration that we can still travel to the EU member states without a visa, Madam Speaker. Quick action. We engaged the EU. We engaged the ambassador. We went to Brussels and met with the relevant persons from the EU Parliament to put before them our case as a country and to show that we are a responsible country and that we are now premised on the foundation of good governance and integrity in public life. Madam Speaker, it is only because of swift and comprehensive actions of the St. Kitts Nevis Labour Party administration that we have been allocated a larger quota of visas per year from the United States of America. Madam Speaker, more and more Kittitians and Nevisians, when they apply for a visa to go to the US, the percentage of successful applicants, that percentage has gone up significantly, Madam Speaker. And it's because we are saying to the world that St. Kitts and Nevis is no longer a banana republic, but is premised on the foundation of good governance and integrity in public life, Madam Speaker. These things have far-reaching, positive outcomes if they are truly practiced, Madam Speaker. Not just by words, but by deeds. And we can't fool people. People know if you are serious or you're not serious, Madam Speaker. That is why if any person who is supposed to register with the Integrity Commission does not register, the DPP would act. People around the Caribbean were shocked when they saw the DPP say, well, if you don't comply, I, as the DPP, will have to apply the law. I can't interfere with that. Because if I don't do what I'm supposed to do, I too can be taken to the court, Madam Speaker. Because we are serious. Never before had that happened in a Caribbean country like that. We have the highest compliance, which is 99 to 100%, to the point where St. Kitts and Nevis was the center of a major Caribbean debate as to what it means to have a country premised on strong laws of integrity in public life and good governance. Madam Speaker, it is only because of the swift and comprehensive actions of the St. Kitts Nevis Labour Party administration that Canada has re-established certain visa-free options for Kittitians and Nevisians. No easy task. We had our ambassador who was doing an excellent job, Ambassador Sherry Truss, yes, who was working comprehensively on this. I remember when I met with the Prime Minister of Canada, Prime Minister Trudeau, right here in the Caribbean, in Bahamas. And this is one of the things that we discussed. And the Prime Minister said then, Terence, I'm going to take a look at it seriously. We will look at it seriously, but there's something that is coming. I had been arguing that St. Kitts and Nevis is a good functioning country and should be given any privileges that are, of course, extended to any other country. And then we got the good news that St. Kitts now has improved visa-free options with Canada. Madam Speaker, why am I going through this? To show you that because of quick action, we were able to get St. Kitts and Nevis back on a good path. Madam Speaker, what we met in August of 2022 was the controversial Harris Prison Project, thousands of outstanding applications overwhelming the CBI unit, and the low cost of citizenship for St. Kitts and Nevis, all of which were going to result in the end of our good name in the international community. So, Madam Speaker, when people are saying that we acted quickly and it somewhat affected the CBI program, what it did is that it strengthened the CBI program. Because we wanted to get away from this type of system that was operating, Madam Speaker, to make sure that St. Kitts and Nevis demonstrates that it's a responsible country, premise on the principles of good governance and integrity in public life. In truth, had they continued, Madam Speaker, our international migration standing would have been compromised. The sole purpose was on maximizing profits at any cost. At any cost. And a lot of that profit, Madam Speaker, we will have to examine. Madam Speaker, the dignity and integrity of our country is most important. That is why we were compelled to act decisively and swiftly. We bolstered our legislative and administrative frameworks right in here, well, with our SRNO, most importantly, to curtail any underselling, reinstated the primacy of law within our CBI program, and we terminated unscrupulous advertising practices. Madam Speaker, in all of this, we made sure that we were not going to compromise the security of St. Kitts and Nevis or any other country, especially our international partners. Since August 2022, we have been in regular contact with our international partners, particularly the United States of America, the EU, and the UK, advocating on behalf of the good people of St. Kitts and Nevis, Madam Speaker. It has been tough, real rough. If there's one thing that has been extremely tough, is this one, because a lot of it is not under your control. A lot of it is influenced heavily by others. There have been difficult meetings, Madam Speaker, but we have done everything we could do, and we will continue to fight for our Federation's good name. And in December of 2022, we issued new CBI regulations. We further strengthened those regulations in January 2023 and again in July 2023. Madam Speaker, had we not done that, we would have lost our visa-free access, Madam Speaker, which would have been devastating for the people of St. Kitts and Nevis, devastating for our people here in St. Kitts and Nevis, Madam Speaker. That is why we had to act as quickly as we did. In March 2023, in St. Kitts, at Park Hyatt, the Prime Ministers of each OECS member state that have a CBI program met with officials from the U.S. Treasury Department and agreed to 6 principles, those of which we have implemented, Madam Speaker. By July 2023, less than a year into our administration's tenure, the minimum investment option of the St. Kitts and Nevis CBI program was increased to US $250,000, dealing with the issue of underselling. And numerous other good governance structures were introduced to our CBI program. These measures have been commended by our international partners and CBI stakeholders of goodwill. Madam Speaker, in March of 2024, last week, in my capacity as the chairman of OECS, I advocated very strongly for the leaders of Antigua and Barbuda, the Commonwealth of Dominica, and Grenada to join forces with the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis to execute an historic Memorandum of Agreement, MOA, to strengthen all of our CBI programs. And we did it, Madam Speaker. It is a tremendous feat to show our collective commitment to ensuring that our CBI programs survive and are sustainable. Madam Speaker, that was made public. The 4 small island states who signed the memorandum have committed to increase and harmonize a number of critical things, including a minimum investment amount of US $200,000. That will double it for some of the countries, Madam Speaker. We have therefore agreed that the minimum investment thresholds for our CBI programs shall represent the actual amount of funds received and applied towards an applicant's qualification under our respective CBI programs, and not the gross amount of funds paid by an applicant for which deductions, including the payment of commissions, are made. And therefore, I take this opportunity, Madam Speaker, to commend my fellow Prime Ministers and leaders in the region for recognizing that the CBI programs are too important to our respective economies to act irresponsibly in their operations. This move will show the world that our four nations are responsible and serious about operating investment migration programs that respect the rule of law, are sustainable, and do not offend the interests of our brothers and sisters in the international community. This was a tremendous achievement, Madam Speaker. And this leads me to discuss the future of the CBI. The Citizenship by Investment Unit Bill 2024, which will get its first reading today, is meant to bring more transparency and accountability to the operations of our CIU. The current CIU operates as a department within the Ministry of National Security, Immigration and Citizenship, with financial oversight by the Prime Minister's Office. Operations of the CIU are therefore funded by funds appropriated in the annual estimates. However, we agree with the recommendation contained in the 2023 FATF and OECD report that I referred to earlier, that CBI jurisdictions should consider designating a specific specialist government agency, state, corporation, or specialist operational unit that holds the end-to-end responsibility of the safe day-to-day operation of an investment migration program and which is subject to effective oversight. This is a natural professionalization evolution of a 40-year-old program, Madam Speaker. There is a need for the CIU to have independent, professional management, operations, and high-performing staff. There is a need for the CIU to become a body corporate with an even more robust board of governors who report to the minister with responsibility for citizenship. Success stories in this model have been the St. Kitts Nevis Tourism Authority and SCASPA, Madam Speaker, and therefore this type of arrangement is not new to us. The bill also allows the CIU to collect money to manage its own affairs through the relevant administrative fees, while the bulk of the CBI revenue is still paid into the Consolidated Fund for Management by the Federal Ministry of Finance. We are not creating some other fund, Madam Speaker. The money will go directly into our treasury, directly into our consolidated fund. We believe this is a sensible approach in taking our CBI program to the next level and making it sustainable, and therefore encourage all citizens to read the bill for themselves before we debate it in the coming weeks. And the bill that will be tabled for the first time today in Parliament will be circulated so that we can have national input. Further, we are in the final stages of setting up the continuing international due diligence unit within the Ministry of National Security. Continuing international due diligence unit within the Ministry of National Security. Madam Speaker, this is fundamentally important. This is the next generation type of policy that we are introducing. St. Kitts and Nevis is introducing. So this due diligence unit within the Ministry of National Security will make sure to act as a vigilant and proactive entity employing intelligence gathering, analysis, and collaboration to mitigate risks associated with the continued operation of our CBI program, Madam Speaker. This is the first time we have to respond and be responsible, and that is why we are creating the CIDD, and other countries have expressed interest, Madam Speaker. The CIDD unit will be headquartered in Europe. We envisage it will be Brussels. It will ensure that citizens holding passports issued by St. Kitts and Nevis and residing and working internationally abide by the laws of the countries in which they reside and visit, and that they abide by the international laws as well. It will also seek to alert the Ministry of SKN citizens who are being investigated for committing or have been arrested or charged with financial or other crimes internationally. Release number 3, release with and report to international law enforcement, anti-money laundering and anti-terrorist financing agencies within SKN citizens, when SKN citizens are being investigated for committing or have been arrested and or charged with financial or other crimes internationally. Number 4, retrieve passports, Madam Speaker, issued by St. Kitts and Nevis, which have been cancelled by the Minister pursuant to Passports and Travel Documents Act. It means if you're in Europe and your passport is to be retrieved, we will have somebody there to retrieve it. And lastly, create policies to mitigate and address any risks associated with St. Kitts and Nevis citizens who obtain their citizenship via our CBI program. We are a responsible nation, Madam Speaker. And in conclusion, Madam Speaker, I must state that St. Kitts and Nevis of 40 years ago is certainly not the St. Kitts and Nevis of today, thanks in part to our Citizenship by Investment program. While the program has played a role in achieving these successes, it has not come without scrutiny, criticism, and factors to be improved. The vision to use CBI to attract international investment was both bold and creative, but we must admit that over the years, we must advance the program to deal with the changes that we are seeing throughout the world. Madam Speaker, the program has not been mutually beneficial for all stakeholders, Madam Speaker, especially our people, who should always be the first beneficiaries of such programs. And that is why, Madam Speaker, we announced during the last campaign that when it is feasible to do, we will give CBI dividends to our people directly, Madam Speaker. Especially coming out of COVID, where things were challenging and hard, we gave the dividends to ease the burden of our people and to help to stimulate the struggling economy post-COVID, Madam Speaker. It is not all the time that a dividend will be available. A dividend is available when you have the resources from a particular investment or whatever the financial instrument might be, when that is available and you have so to give. Sometimes a year a particular firm might give, depending on how it performs. It may not be in a position to give. But, Madam Speaker, we wanted to share directly with the people of St. Kitts and Nevis what is theirs. And let me underscore, without error, that our CBI program will operate with unparalleled transparency under vigorous oversight from the CIU. We are committed to maintaining open and honest dialogue with our global partners, safeguarding the esteemed reputation of our federation. We have fortified our legislative and administrative frameworks to thwart underselling and guarantee the completion of real estate ventures that are financed through the CBI program. And in pursuit of this objective, we invite discerning investors who recognize our nation's potential to support transformative projects that augment our law. Madam Speaker, our CBI program is currently being and will continue to be administered in such a way that all stakeholders can have an equal opportunity to benefit. Our engagements and directives are intentional, aiming for the enhanced prosperity of each and every individual within our nation through this evolved program. All these changes we have made will ensure that we will maintain, sorry, Madam Speaker, all these changes we have made will ensure that we maintain a progressive program and cement St. Kitts and Nevis's place as a leader in the CBI industry. And as custodian of our CBI program, I promise the people of St. Kitts and Nevis, home and abroad, that I will do everything within my power. This administration will do everything within its power to preserve the good name of our federation and always act in the best interests of our people. That is my word, and I've kept my word thus far, through thick and thin, Madam Speaker. That is why I had to act quickly. That is why this administration had to act quickly. That is why we had to act quickly and swiftly and decisively, Madam Speaker. Those actions thus far have saved our program and our good name. The results speak for themselves. Now, in our transformation into a sustainable island state, Madam Speaker, and I kept speaking about this because had we not developed such a strategy, had we continued to depend so significantly on one pillar of the economy, which is the CBI program, as the IMF said, it is extremely vulnerable. It means our future would be bleak, Madam Speaker. And so CBI, in the sustainable island state model, will be just one of the elements of our economic development in a diversified economy. Madam Speaker, I want to say to the people of St. Kitts and Nevis that it is critical that we diversify and transform. It is critical that we lead towards our sustainable island state. With that, Madam Speaker, I would say that this administration has acted very responsibly in a competent way for the benefit of all. Thank you, Madam Speaker, and may it please you.
Thank you to the Honourable Member for St. Christopher 8.